228 people dead, government says, amidst onslaught. Nurses give the Salaries and Remunerations Commission SRC 1 week to resolve CBA, or they will join doctors on strike.
Miraa is not bad.
How to chew miraa. Shocking video as pastor gives vivid description on how and when to consume hurt. All right, be part of this broadcast. Watch us across our social media platforms on EBN TV. Later on, we'll be in studio by Pastor Kefa, who will be taking us through an important conversation on the role of men in our families. How do we groom our sons to be husbands and fathers? And also the questions of the Gen Z era. Do we have what it takes, the quality that that takes to have husbands and fathers? And so the role of a man in the family, that is the conversation that we'll be having later on. We'd love to hear from you. What are your thoughts, are questions, thoughts perhaps that you may have. Our SMS line is open at 23059. Also watch us live across our social media platforms, that is on EBN TV. But before that, let's take a look at what is making headlines across the secular world. Now, the number of people killed by flooding and other impacts of the heavy rains battering Kenya has risen to 228, the government spokesperson announced on Sunday. The torrential rains that have caused widespread flooding and landslides across the country in recent weeks has forecast to worsen in May. In a statement, the office said further flooding was expected in low-lying areas, riparian areas and urban areas, while landslides and mudslides may occur in areas with steep slopes, escarpments and ravines. The deluge have destroyed homes, roads, bridges and other infrastructure across East Africa's largest economy. At least 164 people have been injured by the adverse weather, while 212,630 people have been displaced nationwide.
Tunasikitika kutangaza kwamba idadi ya waliotuacha imeongezeka mpaka watu 228, kumaanisha watu 9 wameongezeka tangia jana. Jana walikuwa watu 219, na hawa 7 ni watu wazima na 2 ni watoto. Na kwa hivyo tunatoa rambirambi kwa jamaa na marafiki kwa sababu ya janga hili. Pia watu ambao wameathirika na mafuriko haya, idadi imeendelea kuongezeka mpaka watu 223,198, na hiyo ni idadi kubwa sana ya wale ambao wameathirika, na familia manyumba 42,000 zimeweza kuathirika na mafuriko haya, 42,526. Kaunti ambazo zimeathirika zaidi ni Homa Bay, Kajiado na Nakuru. Homa Bay, Kajiado, Nakuru, Mandera na Nairobi, na hususan hapa Nairobi. Na serikali imeshaanza kutoa hawa wenzetu kutoka manyumbani mwao. Watu 1,163 wameweza kuondolewa na wataweza kusajiliwa katika mpango wa nyumba wa serikali, na hakuna mtu yoyote ambaye ataruhusiwa kurudi katika karibu na mito 17 ya Nairobi.
Now, Kalonzo Musyoka has said the Kenya Kwanza government has failed in dealing with the floods that has rocked the country for the past 2 weeks and left over 200 people dead. Kalonzo, who was in Mombasa, urged President William Ruto to declare the floods a national disaster and allocate money to help those affected by the floods across the nation. Musyoka spoke during the consecration party of Bishop Joseph Maweu and Reverend Agnes Maweu at the Redeemed Church in Magongo. Kalonzo defended Raila's criticism of the failure by Ruto's government to aid the families affected by floods in Mukuru kwa Njenga and said that they stand with him as an Azimio leader.
Presiding Bishop was
that what is going on now, take into account we have lost over 219 lives and thousands of families are affected by the flooding. So as Mheshimiwa Ojieng tried to explain, if this is declared a national disaster, which it is, even if they declare it or not, but the beauty about declaring it a national disaster is it draws partnership response. Our international partners and local partners will all come to help the people. Because look at the families, for example, of the 10 or so people who died in Sultan Ahmad because of that Solen River. They have left behind families, and those families will need a lot of support. Yani waziri analeta mbolea ya mawe, sio waziri, pengine, by the way, personally, I'm expecting the Minister for Agriculture apichue wale wote, because nchi hii imeamua kuwa ni nchi ya kidemokrasia chini ya katiba aliyoanzisha rais ambaye amelala, Mwai Kibaki, whom I have the honor to serve as his vice president. When the righteous are in authority, people rejoice. And when the wicked hold instruments, bear the instruments of power, people mourn. Sasa nikiuliza, Kenya kuna mashangilio sasa hivi ama ni kilio?
Yetu kama viongozi ni kuomba wananchi wa Kenya, please heed any warnings and any guidelines that will be given by the county governments here at the coast and all the 33 county governments that have been affected by the floods. Heed also the warnings of the national government. Kwa ule utaratibu umewekwa, wanasema heri kinga kuliko nini? Tiba. Prevention is better than cure.
Archbishop Martin Kivuva of Mombasa Catholic Church has urged the government to mull the construction of large dams to avert the recurring floods that have led to the death of more than 200 people. Speaking on Sunday during the Golden Jubilee celebration of St. Joseph Catholic Church, Tudor Parish, headed by Reverend Father Richard Airo, Archbishop Kivuva prayed for fortitude for families who have lost their loved ones as a result of the heavy rainfall that has wreaked havoc in several parts of the country. He called for proper planning for the dams to harvest waters from rivers for domestic irrigation and generation of hydroelectric power. Now, he also stated that experts have likened the heavy rains wreaking havoc in several parts of the country to be akin to the ones witnessed in 1961 when people were relocated to other parts of the country.
Kwamba kuna uwezekano wa planning of jinsi maji na mito inavyowekwa kushikilia yale maji yawe mabawa makubwa ya maji ya mimea ya irrigation, na pia mambo kama kutumika kwa kutengeza pia umeme kama tunavyoona dams zetu za kule sehemu za juu. Mwishoni, naamini kwamba jambo hili litupe funzo tena na tena. Wataalamu wanatuambia wingi wa mvua kama hii umetokezea tu 1961 tulipokuwa na mafuriko mengi. Wakati ule tunalipwagiwa chakula na ndege, na mafuriko yale kafanya hata serikali kuhamisha watu kuwapeleka sehemu mbalimbali. Ni kweli haya yatufunze kuwa na tahadhari ama emergency systems ambazo zinaweza kuwasaidia watu kwa haraka. Naomba tafadhalini tena tushirikiane, badala ya kulaumu tusaidiane karibu kwa karibu. Kama kanisa tumeomba Wakristo na washikadau wetu sote mbalimbali tuchangie chakula, nguo, mavazi ili ziweze kusaidia na kupelekwa sehemu ambapo wale watu walioumia wanaishi au wapo.
Wa dini, na kwa hivyo bado dini ina nafasi kubwa ya kuboresha maadili ya watoto wetu, maadili ya viongozi wetu, ili kwamba unapopata nafasi ya kuwa kiongozi uchagui mambo yanayofaa kikundi kimoja na ukasahau kwamba kiongozi mzuri ni yule ambaye anaweka maslahi ya watu wote pamoja. Na kwa hivyo kwa kupitia maombezi ya Mtakatifu Yusufu ambaye alikuwa ni mfanyikazi hodari, tunazidi kuwakumbuka vijana wetu ambao wamemaliza masomo lakini hawana kazi.
Now, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has told political leaders to concentrate on service delivery and desist from spreading propaganda and idle talk. The Deputy President also called on political leaders from Kiambu County to tone down on high-octane politics and leadership wrangles and focus on working for their people. While speaking at the SEK St. Mark's New Committee Parish in Kiambu Town constituency on Sunday, Gachagua said leaders should focus on social and economic development issues of the areas and the nation instead of engaging in endless politicking. Gachagua spoke amid heightened political talk and activities across the political divide over the 2027 elections and declaration of political ambitions.
President amenipatia hiyo kazi ya kuhakikisha ya kwamba hakuna Mkenya amekufa, hakuna mtu amekosa chakula, wale wote wanataka kusongeshwa wamesongeshwa, silali, simu zinalia the whole night. I am giving it my all, I'm putting my best foot forward so that what the president has asked me to do, I do. And that is why some of us have no time for petty politics. We are busy people. Tuko na kazi mingi sana ya kufanya. We have no time to listen to nonsense and theatrics and drama. We want to focus on the job that tulipewa na watu ya Kenya na ile ambayo tumepewa na rais. Na tunauliza watu, kila mtu, we focus on the job. This country needs us and wananchi have great expectations. Let all leaders focus on service delivery. That is what Kenyans expect from us.
Ni vizuri tumesikia maongeo moja mbili hapa kwa viongozi. Nataka niulize Your Excellency, because you have been a leader, you have been an MP, now you are our Deputy President. Unajua mambo ya sheria. Are we saying ya kwamba sisi tunataka tukuulize Your Excellency maswali ya serikali ya Jubilee? Auditor General akienda kuandika neno lolote tukuje tuulize William Ruto na Rigathi Gachagua mambo yale yalitendwa na serikali ya Jubilee? No. Your Excellency, let us be truthful. Because zile report za Auditor General zenye zimetolewa saa hizi ni zile za serikali zilipita. I am answering to the issues of zile serikali zilikuwa za kina Kabogo, serikali zilikuwa za kina Waititu, zilikuwa za kina Nyoro. That is the report that is out. So when we are saying we want to discuss about the issues of the county of Kiambu, let us be honest. Tusiweke tu kupamba hivi so that you get an opportunity to say things.
Now, the Kenya National Union of Nurses has issued a one-week ultimatum to the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, SRC, to implement the collective bargaining agreement CBA signed in 2017. According to the Secretary General Seth Panyako, the union will join doctors in a strike if the CBA is not implemented. The union cited the government's delay in implementation as the reason for its decision to take stern action. Panyako stated that the government had also been changing its tune on employee engagement without informing the nurse leaders, a move they are condemning.
Huwezi kuambia wafanyakazi utaweka kwa kandarasi ya kudumu, alafu baadaye kesho unapatilika bila hata kutuambia sisi. Na umetuambia sisi na tumeambia wafanyakazi ambao tunaongoza. Wanatuona sisi kama wakora. Wanatuona sisi kama watu ambao hatujui kitu tunafanya. Zile barua leo nikichukua barua kutoka kwa wizara na nipatie wafanyakazi niwaambie hii ndio serikali imesema, watasema hiyo ni uongo. Hiyo barua imetoka River Road. We have no trust in instruments from government. Government must work as a jointed institution. It cannot work as a disjointed institution. A human body must work with all systems working. One hand cannot deny what the other hand is doing. I'm very much afraid this government is letting us down.
The contradictions, the controversies that are being meted on the health workers in this government are getting to a point of distorting everything in health sector.
Now to the Christian world, a clergy leader addressing the media has seemingly endorsed HAT, popularly known as Miraa, saying the drug is not bad. The pastor further went on to question how the drug was being consumed, detailing when to consume it and how. The leader was in company of other clergymen and women and said the drug can cure diseases.
Miraa is not bad. In fact, there are people who eat badly. They consume it without discipline. Miraa should be consumed twice a day. In the morning, you wake up, wash, take good, balanced diet, consume only for that minutes. Stop it.
Thank you very much.
In the evening, you come from work, you go to the bathroom, wash very well, take balanced diet, consume it only for that minutes. You sleep very well. Miraa has got chemicals that cure all venereal diseases. For example, have you ever heard of cholera in Maua? Have you ever heard of cholera in those areas? Have you heard cholera in Isiolo? Have you heard Marala? Where? Why? Because it has got ingredients that kill.
Well, interesting that. We'd love to hear your views on that as well, so you can talk to us across our social media platforms. Now, if you need a miracle in your life, get off the couch, get involved, and receive your miracle. Well, technically, that is the correct way. However, in Accra, Ghana, a pastor is making headwinds with his peculiar way of doing miracles, doing the opposite and literally getting on the couch. To what extent shall men and women be deceived, and to what extent shall, quote unquote, men of the cloth go to show the world what they can do?
God is working here. Thank you, Lord. Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. My God. How are you?
Look at him.
Miracles? What miracles? Now, to our testimony tonight.
To a Bible study, and I figured I'd go. My plan is very simple. I'm going to go and I'm going to be a ninja Christian. I'm going to pretend to be a Christian, learn about the Bible, and then dismantle their arguments for Christianity. And I kept on going. I wanted to prove Christianity wrong, but here's what I learned: that Jesus was not like the people on the street corners. That Jesus' life was actually proving my worldview wrong. And I also learned that Jesus had very deep theological convictions, but he also had very deep relationships with people who are not like him, and people who are marginalized and outcast and pushed aside not only by secular society, but also by religious society as well. And I gave my life to Christ eventually, and I wanted to become a Christian, and I decided to become a pastor pretty much all within the span of a week. And I remember telling my parents, I was a 16-year-old teenager coming out as a Christian to my 3 gay parents. They disowned me for a while. They kicked me out. They didn't want to have anything to do with me. The same frustration and the same treatment and the same extremism that they feared from the people on the street corners, they gave to me at the same time. I went to Bible college and I said, Lord, if you ever give me the chance to lead a church, I want a church filled with people who are broken, filled with people who are questioning their sexuality, with people who have had abortions, with people who are in gangs and homeless and cutting and clinically depressed, and people who have their finances out of whack and their marriages are destroyed, and people who have ruined relationships with their parents, because that's what the church is. The church is really a mosaic of broken lives that God has united together to glorify himself. Jesus Christ did not die on the cross for some little members-only country club that is really a Pharisee factory. I preached at a church for 3.5 years. Both of my parents, separate of one another, moved down to Dallas, Texas. And they both started attending the church that I was preaching at. These are the same people that would make fun of people on the radio station, and they started attending my church. And the people in my church were nicer to them than I was. And I just think to myself, that's incredible. And it's messy, and there's tension, and it's uncomfortable. And you know what? That's what faith is. Do they believe in Jesus? Yes. Are they saved? Yes. It's not my job to resolve this tension between grace and truth. It's my job to love people well and point them to Jesus, because Jesus is all about people. And when Jesus' grace intersects our messy lives, it looks like messy grace. But that's okay, because God loves messy people.
All right, do allow us to take a quick breather, but when we come back, we'll be getting into the conversation this evening. I'll be joined in studio by Bishop Alan Kefa, and we'll be trying to understand the space and the role of a man in a family setup. Now, before this man becomes a man, there's a process, the boy child, period, or the boyhood period before he becomes a man. Is there proper attention to raise a boy child to become a husband and a father in a family? So that conversation returns in a bit. Your feedback is highly welcomed across our social media platforms. Our SMS line is also open on 23059. So Christian Wild takes a break. We'll be back shortly.
Welcome to the heart of agriculture, where the journey of maize begins, but it doesn't end there. It's just the beginning of a story that touches lives, sustains communities, and fuels dreams. At Nelco Maize Millers, we understand the significance of maize in our lives. It's more than just a crop. It's a staple, a tradition, and a source of livelihood for millions. Introducing Sherehe and Cheka Maize Meal. Elevate your meals with our premium grade 1 sifted maize meal. Exclusively from Nelco Millers. Sherehe Maize Meal. Tusherehekee pamoja.
Walisema mnywa maji kwa mkono mmoja,
kiu yake ipale pale. Ndiposa tumekuletea wewe mtazamaji wetu
mkono mwingine ili kukata kiu yako na ari yako ya ufahamu.
Naam, ngoma imechezwa mtazamaji, basi hatuna budi kulisakata na kukuletea wewe ufahamu wa kaunti yako,
tukiangazia masuala ya siasa na uongozi,
jamii na itikadi,
maendeleo na changamoto katika kaunti yako. Ungana nami Belinda William,
nami Emmanuel Marwa
kwenye makala ya Gatuzi Langu kila siku ya Jumatatu saa 5:30 hadi saa 6:30.
Hi, my name is Jeff Kimayu Somba. Join me this and every other Thursday from 7:30 to 8 p.m. on the Spheres of Life as we get to understand different personalities and their challenges and how they overcame them. This is happening only on EBN TV.
You are watching EBN TV, transforming your world.
In a fast-paced world filled with distractions, it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters: your relationship with God. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we take you on a transformative journey of building your faith, without which it's impossible to please God. A journey of introspection and discovery of who you are in Christ Jesus.
For you to walk with God, you should not crumble when you come under pressure. Kama umeokoka, sema umeokoka mpaka mbele ya president, mpaka mbele ya chief justice, mpaka mbele ya kila mtu. Hiyo ndio kuokoka ya ukweli. Kuokoka ya ukweli.
Enjoy a faith-filled environment of worship and ministry of the word every Tuesday and Thursdays from 9 a.m. with Reverend Felix Kevoy, exclusively on EBN TV.
That is the word of the Lord today.
This is EBN TV, transforming your world.
From Nairobi, Kenya, this is EBN TV.
Well, good evening. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. You're watching Christian World today. We'd love to get into an important conversation that is family-centered, because in every household, this person is there. So how do we ensure that their status quo is maintained, as well as even when we're raising young boys, that they get to a level where we say this is a responsible man at home, whether a husband or a father. So I'd love to get into the conversation of just understanding the role or the importance of a man in the family. And in studio, I'm joined by Bishop Alan Kefa, who is here to help us diverge further into this. Thank you for your wonderful company this evening, Bishop.
Asante, thanks for having me.
All right, so I'll go way back to a point before this person in question we're talking about is a man and is still a boy. And there's normally a a very popular saying that says we take a lot of time in raising girls and young women to become mothers and to become wives, but we take less time to raise young boys to become husband and fathers. Do you see it from the same point of view from where you sit?
Yes, in a sense, because when there's an investment in raising a child, and on one side the investment is skewed towards one child, then you will actually be able to point out that that investment is a bit of a disadvantage to one side. However, you need to go back to traditionally how children were raised. There was a very, for lack of a better term, natural space of raising men, because mostly people used to grow up in age sets, and you'll notice that if you go to most cultures, there are age sets where generally people were born around the same time, and it's because of how the society was structured, because men would be away on war, men would be away taking new ground, and they would come home at more or less the same time, and that was the time children would be born and all that. And there was a way, they would get circumcised at the same time, or just the normal rites of passage at the same time and all that. So that structure was so natural that there was no need to pull in resources to raise either the boy or the girl, because the girl also was raised in a certain way. However, because men were in leadership, what happened was, initially, I'm not sure so much investment was put in the boys. It's just that the opportunities were more, and the girls sort of looked like they were being left behind. And the thought to bring the girls, up to speed. For me, where we got it wrong was, you don't create one problem to solve another problem. So the way the opportunities were being created for the boys should have continued. What we needed was to create more opportunities for girls, because if you kill the boy, then and they're all growing up at the same time, they're the same age. This will be their spouses, this will be their friends, this will be their colleagues at work, this will be their bosses, and the formation of one had more investment than the other, or the socialization of one had more investment than the other, then you find the boys will be disadvantaged. And here we are with a situation that we're saying boys are afraid to get married, but actually it's because those who have not been raised well will be intimidated, and the girls are bolder, they are more exposed, they can speak their mind. I don't know if we are taking time to prepare boys for that kind of lady when they grow up. So in a sense, I would say the investment going into the girl child, there needs to be a more equitable way of raising both of them, so that ultimately they will all grow up. They will be the leaders, they will be the doctors, the CEOs and all that. There has to be an intentional and deliberate way of raising them, because they're in the same context, they're in the same demography, so you don't invest in one at the expense of the other.
Right. And from your description, what one would pick is that there has been a shift. Initially, there was investment on the boy child more than the girl child. Then we came to a shift where we're now investing more on the girl child compared to the boy child, and that is sort of detrimental, because if you're going to talk about more empowered women, then why should we forget to empower the men also? And so I'm sitting here thinking then, where is the gap now in this modern age now? Where is the gap in such a way that we're still talking about, the boy child, and there's a gap, there's a problem with the boy child, they're not being invested on. So where is the gap? Is it how they're nurtured? Is it the era that we're in of social media and empowerment? So what causes this sort of shift?
I think it's a perception thing. And perceptions speak louder than reality. I don't think there was an investment in the boy at the expense of the girl per se. It's just that girls were not being availed. Girls were kept at home. The traditional way of thinking was girls will get married, girls will do. So there was no quote unquote real need to invest in the boy, the opportunities there was a very natural track that the boy would grow up, get a job, get married to a wife he would take care of. So actually the boys were not empowered per se, they had more opportunities. But right now we are seeing a very intentional effort where resources are going in, opportunities are being created. One of the things that this may not sound very nice, but affirmative action is a very interesting animal, because we give people money because they are women or young or even disabled, and it sounds good until you realize ultimately if the politics come in, then we end up with people who have money simply because they are women, not because they are capable, not because they are skilled. And the same way even for the youth and all that. And so it has to be well thought through. And that's where the gap comes in, because what happens to this lady who, when she's of age, there is nobody who can match, where she is, the kind of exposure she has received, the kind of education she has. There is nobody in that demography that can be able. And you'll realize there's a very interesting phenomenon coming in. Guys are getting old, they're becoming side chicks. They're getting older men, because at least those older men can match them, and it's because their age mates are somewhere in a corner eating miraa or something, So it's the gap is we need to invest in a generation, not in agenda. Let's invest in a generation. Let's say we want to raise this kind of leaders and create equal opportunities for everyone, and build them towards that. That way, then we will have a more balanced, future, as it were.
Right. If you look at the engagements, as a pastor and as a bishop, you'd meet with various groups more often than not. Is there that intentional grooming to the boys from their parents? Are they having these conversations where they sit down with the boy and tell them, listen, eventually you're going to become a husband, eventually you're going to become a dad, these are the things you're supposed to be doing, these are the things you're not supposed to be doing? Is there that intentional sit down talk and grooming, a one-on-one between parents and their boys?
It's there, but it's a bit superficial, because let me go back to the traditional way things were being done. Natural spaces were created. There were the rites of passage, where an older generation was supposed to mentor a younger generation. Younger people were supposed to work with. I remember in the years of our formation, it was a mandatory requirement to visit our grandfather and spend time with him. And we would have moments where there would be, if I could use that term carefully, transfer of knowledge. Right now, let's go to a traditional setting. What time does the parents have to speak to the young people? So the young people are being taught more by social media, by their peers. Even the schools, the institutions they go into, there is no provision for mentoring, for coaching, for where somebody is pouring into them. So the young people are more or less groping, unless they get into programs. And again, those programs, they don't fix everything. They probably just scratch the surface, because development and formation is a whole process. It's not a 10-week thing or a 1-month thing, we have so many rites of passage these days. You go to many institutions and you'll find B-charge organizations have rites of passage and all that, and guys are there for 4 weeks, and we assume that transition has taken place, because from there they'll go back to school and all that. So it's a real gap. We need to think it through. We need to ask what do we want these children to become, and so that then in our curriculum development, in parenting, we should coach parents, we should teach parents. One of the things that I think I am happy about the church right now, some churches are beginning to realize its parents who are not equipped, because the generation, a few generations have come, there's so many definitions, I don't even know which one is which one. Yeah, I mean, it's too much. Yeah. However, the one common denominator is that we have unskilled parents. Parents who just happened to be parents. Their parents were away looking for jobs and all that. Then they grew up, they got children, they don't know what to do with these children. And so you cannot give what you don't have. You cannot give an instruction you didn't receive in the first place. So these guys were sort of, they just grew up like trees. And that's not the biblical way. The Bible says train up a child. Training means there's a discipline. Training means there's a curriculum. Training means there are certain things you focus on, whether it's how to deal with the opposite sex. Those conversations were being had, how to deal with older people, how to deal with mothers, there was a way, a certain very standardized, if I could use that term carefully, there was a certain standard that was set in society, that there is a certain way you would behave with older people. I remember there were the buses where it was sacrilege for a young man to be standing and an older person is sitting, and nobody needed to even say it. It was assumed that you're a young person, you should be standing when an older person is sitting in a queue, in a bank, and all that. There was always a standard that was set. That standard is not there anymore. So children are being raised by TV and house girls. In the early years it's house girls. Then they go to school. The teachers are not their parents. They're there to, fill them with information. So the social aspect of how we are forming our children, and doesn't help that our curriculums are stacked. So the children are in school throughout. So even the opportunity is not there per se.
Yeah. All right. Now we've tried to develop this man from when he was still a boy, all to now being an adult as a man. At what age what age do we stand and say, no, this is a man? Because we tend to see a lot of confusion. Legally, the age in Kenya when you become an adult is at 18 years. Is that the point when you say, okay, now this is a man, could be somebody's husband, could be somebody's father? Or is there, yes, you are turning 18, but there's still some few years for you to go before you can now become somebody's father or husband?
There's an adage that goes something like the father is in the son, such that when you are born male, you are actually a man. It is now bringing out the man. That's why we normally say he has grown into a man. Yeah. So that man was always there. It's just that how the formation, what was done, was there any intentionality in speaking into their lives? Was there intentionality in showing them how, like the scripture says, train up a child in the way they should go? So there's a way a child should go. There's a way a child should develop. If there's no intentionality, the writer Paul says, when I was a child, I spoke like a child. I understood like a child. I thought like a child. When I grew up, I put away childish things. And there's a way I like playing around with that scripture, because children speak fast, then they understand, then they think, according to 1 Corinthians chapter 13:11. But you realize if you reverse the order, then you realize that's how adults think fast. They understand, then they speak. Which means for you to become an adult, it really has nothing to do with age. It is a willingness and a readiness to take responsibility, such that if we have children who, right now the fertility age in Kenya is hovering at around 12, 13 years thereabouts. And I don't think these children get pregnant from people who are much, much older than them. It must be either their schoolmates, their neighbors, and all that. So it's probably the same age set. That means then the minute somebody is in a position to take responsibility, that is a man. That is a man. So we need models. We need people who can be able to speak into these young people who can be able to show them what it means to be a man. And there's no, I I struggle with the idea that you will have a man hanging around until he reaches a certain age, then you begin instructing them. I think from birth there is a way. That's what used to be happening traditionally. Boys were being told don't, however wrong that was, but at least there was that very clear formation that you are a man. Don't cry like a girl, don't play with girls, don't. So there was, before this man, before he grows into a man, he has already been, the seed has been sown from birth that you are different, and there's how you need to carry yourself, there's how you're the protector, you're this, you're that. You take care of your sister because you're the man. You know, father is going away, he says you are in charge, you're the man, and all that. And so by default, the traditional way of raising children, in as much as it was not captured in a workbook, there was a very clear investment into the boy, both the boy and the girl, because there was, if you look at the traditional homestead, there was where the grandfather used to be, the grandmother used to be, and the girls would be their grandmother, the boys with their fathers and all that. And there was transfer that was taking place. Right now, the social structure is different. We need now to reinvent what was working and see how it fits into the current context. I normally say, if strategy is not integrated into culture, forget that strategy. It will not work. So we need to be asking ourselves, what was it that used to be so easy to do because of the context, because of the culture, that can now be brought forward? And we look at our culture now, right now, look at our how we do things and try to fit it there. I've worked in an environment where we try to do that, where the older people would be tagged to the younger people, just show them the ropes. There's a bit of what people are trying, but it's not intentional. For me, you only succeed when you're intentional.
All right. Now, let's take a look at a family setup, which consists of a father, a mother, and children, if there are any. And as you said, the social structures are changing, and we've seen it change, especially with generations. There's normally a millennial generation, then there's a Gen Z generation, this era of now, or at least those who are born about 20 years, if you do the math from now or before. And the social structure is changing in such a way that a lot of people are copying what is done within the Western parts of the world. And we've sort of moved away from our own culture. A lot of people are, keeping up with the Western culture, for lack of a better word. And so what should a man actually be doing in a home?
First, you see, why I don't know why we assume that the West has it right. Because you need to go to the statistics of divorce, of rape, of murder, of all those things. They are much, much higher than our culture. I remember speaking to someone who is not African, and he was asking, what is the secret of Africans? And I told them a very simple thing. Africans, we pay dowry. And it sounds like a crazy thing, but where you invest value, you will actually take care of it properly. But however, how do I say this? You see, the context there is not the same as our context. So there are certain things that are permissible in other cultures that are not necessarily permissible in our culture. Let me show you one or two scenarios. It's not strange in our current context to find a young man who is raised in a family where the mother earns more than the father. So here, this boy is in confusion because he's told the father is the provider, the father is the one who should be taking care, and the mother probably is a CEO somewhere. She has a better position because of the things we have mentioned earlier, that during formation and then the opportunities as they were being created over the years, these people will grow up the corporate ladder with time, and for the man it's harder. It's a harder road. It's a more, so by the time they're in their 40s, beginning to approach 50s, probably the lady will have gone ahead. So you're raising a young man there who you're telling them that they should be provider, but at home they're seeing a different thing. Yeah. That's one scenario. There's another scenario where right now it is not mandatory in our culture, and it's unfortunate. It's not mandatory for people to get married. I know of a friend of mine who was given a proposal by a lady telling her, I have a job, I have a good house, I have this, I don't need to get married, but I would want to get a child. Yeah. What do you think? So here's a child who's been raised in a society where the mother has deliberately chosen not to get married. All right? Then when you get these two together, what kind of family will they raise? Both have not been raised in a family that has a father, a mother, and a child. So even the structure, by default or by design, is very subtly moving away from what makes a good family, because we are not right now. We have single fathers. It's something that was unheard of. I mean, some years before. So you have single fathers here, you have single mothers there, you have children who have been raised by either, and then you bring them together. They don't understand this thing you're saying, family. They didn't see it demonstrated. They didn't see it modeled. Yet the demand is still the same. We want the man to be what traditionally we have said a man should be. You want the lady, and they didn't learn it anywhere. They've not seen it anywhere. They've gone to a school where the principal is a lady. The father grew up where the principal were men. To hospital where the doctor is a lady, and all that. And so the social structure has shifted in such a way that the 21st century woman is empowered. She is strong. She's not a damsel in distress anymore. So we need to raise a man who can be able to handle a lady like that, a man who can be able to handle a career woman, a man who can be able to handle a lady who will come home at 10 and she's not from drinking, she's actually from work, from the office or something, or from a business, So there's such a paradigm shift that is required. We need to go back and ask ourselves, are we raising our boys and also for our girls for a society that is no longer existent? What kind of society are we living in, and where is it headed? Basic knowledge says when you want to hit a target that is moving, you anticipate where it will be in a few seconds, and you aim for where it will be. So we can't continue raising children for a world that does not exist. Not the ladies, not the men. We need to ask ourselves, where is the world headed, and how can we adjust course so that then by the time these children are at a place where they are making decisions, they are raising families, they are even in leadership positions, they are relevant to where the world is headed. There's nothing new under the sun. You can't modernize what God put in place. However, the context will always change. The context will always, because there's something I normally say, moving target, moving platform. We are standing on a moving platform trying to hit a moving target. So we must know how to adjust quickly. We must know how to, because how God wired men and women is the same. It's just that now the ecosystem has changed. The hygienes around them has changed. So we need to create that balance where you are still a man in as much as you are not bringing home the bread. You're still a man in as much as probably your work is more physical, or you are what we properly call. I'll give you an assignment, a very simple assignment. Stand at the bus stop tomorrow morning and see how many men you will see going to offices. They are waiting for a matatu to go to town. Probably you will not find any. It's ladies who are going out. The men prefer something different. They prefer, doing a hustle or doing something different. That's the culture we are living in. So is it wrong? No, it's just that that's how men are wired. We need now to see how do we empower them where they are in the way they have chosen to live their lives.
Right. Empowering them where they are. Now, there's a man who is probably watching and is struggling with, he goes out to work, perhaps works very long hours, but at the same time he's also got a family. And he's struggling to find that balance, because probably on weekend when he could spend time with the family, either he's caught up with work again or something else comes up, and there's that, gap between this man being a provider at home and at the same time also being a father and a husband at home?
Well, what could I say? There's nothing wrong if you can't meet all your needs. There's nothing wrong, because if you're working hard, if you're waking up in the morning, making sure that you can do all you can, God will bless that effort, because God blesses the works of our hands, not our jobs. So if you're a hardworking man, ultimately you'll get it right. There's a story in the Bible that I find amazing. Abraham walking up the hill with his son Isaac. And Isaac does a very interesting thing. He evaluates him. He tells him, I have been observing you, and I see you've carried a matchstick. You've carried firewood. You've carried all this. Where is a lamp? And they get into that discourse. But for me, what I see is Abraham leading the way and allowing Isaac to observe him, to ask questions, to learn from him. And so this man, the first thing I would ask them to do is find an older person who's been where you are, who has been that road. For some reason, you will find help. For some reason, there's a way he will help you, how he navigated. Because life is really about principles. Principles are eternal. They don't change. Find what worked in the life of an older person and see how you can take lessons from that, contextualize that, the thinking behind, the reasoning behind how they made certain decisions, how they got to where they got to. The top of my head is get somebody who's ahead of you. Yeah. It's a good way to insulate yourself against failure. Second is get into an accountability group of peers, people who are where you are at, because the experiences are the same. The context is the same, and there's a way each one is dealing with their own issues. Get people around you, talk about your issues, talk about what is happening in your space. That is very helpful, because then now you get to realize you're not alone in this. And then for me, the one that I feel we don't do enough of is there's a generation that is observing this very man. So who is he pouring into? That's where you get the balance. You have somebody who is you're looking up to. Yes. You have somebody who is where you are, and there's somebody who is looking up to you. When you have those three levels of relationships, they create a balance around you, because the person who is walking behind you is probably the most important person, because if you get it wrong, you've lost a generation. Yeah. So you must get it right for the sake of those who are walking behind you. However, you are learning from those that are ahead of you, and you are making application with those who are at the same place where you are. For a man, that's a good structure. That's a good structure that would help him at least navigate the confusing waters of life right now.
Wow, that's quite powerful there. So these husbands and fathers, are here already, because our society is filled with them now. How do they step up from where they are and just go a mile more or a kilometer more? How do they step up in just what they do in their families, what they also do as fathers, as husbands, as cousins, as brothers?
I think that's where we get it wrong. What are they stepping up to? What is that target up there that is not defined? That is because they'll keep stepping up, but what are they stepping up to? For me, there has to be just a clarity of what is the expectation. Let me come back to my own family. Yeah. And I would say, the minute you begin to define where you are going as a family, you don't owe anybody else to live their lives. The minute you define, because you see, if I go by society's definition of success, I may probably not succeed in what God has called me to do. So we need to define what is success. We need to define as a family what there's something called role clarity that is so important in a family setting. What are the roles of the lady? What are the roles of the man? What is even the roles of the children if you're living with them? And when you get those things right, when you define your context, you create a hygiene that if you have achieved your definition of success, then why should you have pressure from society? The problem comes in when your mother is expecting you to be married by a certain age, your father is expecting this, your uncle is expecting that, and you are running helter-skelter trying to please all these people except yourself. Except, and I'm not saying we should be selfish, but it's considered wisdom if you really understand yourself, you understand your potentials, you understand your capacities, your abilities, and work on that. Because you're most likely to succeed in an area that you are gifted and you're strong at. You can't succeed in somebody else's plan for your life.
Yeah. Wow, incredible. Now, I know that you've made it clear what the expectations around that man is and what the reality actually is. And so it boils down to, the question of how should this man evaluate himself essentially, because some are still trying to figure it out. Some are still in young years in their marriages, or even as fathers, and so how do they evaluate themselves and say, okay, so this is where I am, this is the best I can go, there's a point I cannot go beyond. How do they evaluate themselves?
One, there's nothing new under the sun, so there's somebody who has been through what you're going through. There are enough people out there who are really investing in men, especially in this generation. I think I realized people are really working hard to invest in men, which means if you are in Kenya right now, especially in Nairobi, chances are very high you'll be able to connect to a program. However, get a good mentor. Yeah. Get a good coach. Get somebody who can speak into your life. Build relationships with the people who are ahead of you. I was my father's friend. I was my father's friend. I mean, I did business with him. I hung out with him. It really helped me navigate certain things, because there are things he would warn me. There are things he would tell me, this one is not going to work. He could be able to see where my life was headed. I'm fortunate to have had a father who was available for me, and I try as much as possible to be available for my sons. However, if you have somebody who has been where you intend to go, if it's in a career, find somebody who is ahead of you, a career person. Yeah. If it's family, find somebody whose family there's no family that doesn't have issues, but if there's some semblance of stability in that family, ask questions. The secret of getting good answers is actually asking good questions. Yeah. So develop the art of asking good questions. Ask questions about where you're going in life. Ask questions about your aspirations. If you don't have a dream, I would be worried about you. What are your dreams? And once you understand what your dreams are, then who can you work with? Who can work alongside you so that you can be able to achieve your dreams? That man will succeed. I mean, the fact that man is there, he's already started a family, he's already doing something, he's already managing other people around him. He's already a success, if you ask me. So he just needs people to cheer him on. He just needs people to encourage him, people to tell him he will succeed. He will get there.
Right. So final questions, Pasi, as we wind it up. There's this dilemma I've seen quite a lot, particularly in this generation, on how or to what extent should a man provide in the family. And you tend to see the debate of 50-50, where they go 50, the man, 50 the woman. Then there's the debate of, he's a man, he should go 100. So I don't know what your thoughts are about that.
The reason why most marriages are failing, and relationships, as it were, is that 50-50 concept. Because what if my 50 is not what you consider to be 50? For me, the secret of a relationship that works properly is if I give 100% and you give 100%, we will have a good relationship. 50 is not adequate. What am I doing with the other 50? Because if I give you 50, then I'm left with 50. What am I doing with this other 50? This 50 that I've kept for myself, where is it going? Where am I channeling it? But if I brought 100% to the table, and my partner brought 100% to the table, each one of us are at 100. And that's where synergy comes from. Synergy cannot come where I'm holding back because you've given this part and that other part you've not given. But if each one of us is giving 100%, the problem here is actually our definition of even what is wealth, because we assume wealth is just money. There could be that guy who does not have the money, but he's gifted. he's skilled. He can be able to project and to plan. God works in a very interesting way. He can't give you somebody who is exactly the same as you are. So you'll realize one problem will be strong in this area and another one will be strong in this other area. When you come together and you bring 100% of what you have, actually you realize everybody is better as a result of that. So for me, I wouldn't go for 50-50. I would go for 100 each.
100 each. All right. Final words as we wrap it up.
For me, I would encourage the man that is struggling out there. It will be well. Just find good men around you. Find good men. Find men who have gone ahead of you. Ask questions. I mean, most failures are because people didn't just want to ask questions. I think if you do that, you'll be fine.
All right. Thank you so much, Bishop Alan Kefa, for coming in tonight to shed more light about the role of the man in the family. I think my biggest take home is on the three sort of levels a man should have. One is the person he looks up to. Two is the person, they're the same level as peers. And number three is the man that looks up to him. And that is incredible. And for every man, if they're able to just jot that down and make that as a guide through their life, I'm 100% sure they will be able to make it work in various aspects. So thank you very much for watching tonight. This has been Christian World Today, where we've been taking a look at the role of a man in the family. I hope that you, as a family, you've learned quite a lot. You can share this broadcast with your brother, with your cousin, even your husband, or somebody that is close to you whom you consider important for this conversation. That is where we wrap it up. My name is Cynthia Nanjala. Have yourself a wonderful night.
Very good.